Shalom, Kal Halayim La Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Wahabracha Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of GMS who rule well, who I learned this truth from, and salutations and blessings to you elect out there, starting with the 144,000 on down. So this is an image, as you see here. It says Philip the Fifth, King of Macedon, and you know this is going into pretty much right? You Edomites, you are the goats. You are represented as the goats in the scriptures, right? And that is for a multitude of reasons. But you know, Esau, as you Edomites say, right? The foundation of Western civilization is Greece, right? Which is technically what you're talking about is your civilization, right? You guys implemented these. Well, first of all, you already worship horn gods. You know, that's pretty evident. When you look up the Edomite god, right, this is the god that they worshipped in Edom, ancient Petra. Okay, Kwai. All right, as you see, it is a horned god, right? And this ties into, Baphomet, which is another horned god. Pan, right? Pan. He had, the horned god as well. And this is going into goats, right? When you look up certain goats, various goats, right? It's just going into that as well, right? Now we know in the scriptures horns represent power and whatnot, but this is one of the reasons why when you go to Matthew 25:31, this is Yahushua speaking, right? When the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. Because the two star players in this world right now, right, in this world, is Jacob and Esau. All right, you other nations, you Ishmaelites, Moabites, Hamites, you guys are support characters, if you will, right? You have your parts, but the two stars of this show is Jacob and Esau. Jacob, you are represented as the sheep, the lost sheep of Israel, as Yahushua himself said, and you Edomites, you are the goats. You know, right? The word goat, eriphos. Down here it says through the idea of hairiness, which is another reason about the kind of hair, right? It says Esau was a hairy man, right? Esau was a hairy man. Matter of fact, what is that? Not Petro. Seer. Seer means hairy. It's a omen nomen, right? It's a word or name, right, that describes something. Okay, a trait of you Edomites. Seir is your ancient homeland, right? So it says, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. See? And we know about you Edomites. You deal on the left hand side, right? That's all you deal with, right? What is that scripture? From his youth. No, that's not the one. Yeah, Job 20:11. I believe this is the one I'm thinking of. It says his bones are full of the sin of his youth, which shall lie down with him in the dust. No, that's not exactly it. But there's one in Isaiah. I know it's in Isaiah, and it's pretty much saying that you have been doing this from when you were coming up, pretty much from your inception. Right? You also have Psalms 50. What is that? 58. The wicked are estranged from the womb. Sins of his That's not it. That's all right. Lord's will, it'll come to me. But anyway, you Edomites, you deal on the left hand side, man. Right. So this whole thing with the Greeks, when we know that, first of all, during the time of the Persians, you Edomites were already trying to, during Agag, I believe, right, the Amalekite. He was trying to transition the kingdom from the Persians to the Greeks, to the Macedonians. He was a Macedonian, but he was Amalekite, so that shows you Amalek was up in Macedonia. You know, Philip, the father of Alexander, the so-called great, the creep, we call him, right? They were Macedonians, right? Philip of Macedon, and you're gonna see that they implemented heavily these goat emblems in Greece, specifically showing you the change of, first of all, lineage, because you had Etruscans and other peoples, right? Etruscan wasn't the only name. Some names are missing, you know, my memory right now, jogging my memory, but certain other names who were all Japhetic. Etruscans is one of them, right? There was a transition there, you know. And here is I got this image because here it says Hittite god depicted wearing a goat helmet. Okay, on the left. Okay. The same tradition continued in Macedonian royal heraldry and Albanian Middle Ages. Now, why did I show this? Because the Hittites, who were the Hittites? The Hittites derived from Canaan, right? The Canaanites. And that's that's the first nation Esau went to and married into, for obvious reasons, trying to get melanin in his seed, but also because the Canaanites, when you go into it, they took a lot of the old pre-flood knowledge of wickedness, odious works. When you read about Wisdom of Solomon, what is that, 12, where King Solomon was not cursing out, but just giving the history of what the Canaanites were doing in the land of Israel, right? In the land of Canaan. The most odious works of witchcraft, right? And Esau went into that and got a lot of knowledge from the Canaanites. They worship a lot of things from Canaan. They worship a lot of things from Mizraim as well. But the Canaanites, that's where fetal sacrifice, or infant sacrifice, like not fetal, infant sacrifice. I'm thinking of fetal because of Planned Parenthood, which is a Canaanite doctrine. You know, that's the heaviest form of witchcraft. They tell you that. Any top witch or warlock will tell you that the blood of an innocent, obviously it's a so-called innocent infant, a newborn, because they found these things in the ancient world. They found archaeologists excavated these sites where they would find small, tiny bones. Pretty much, they could understand that these bones was an infant child under the months of 1 or 2, right? Literally, infant, newborn. They would throw in the fire. That's why there was a law in the book of Leviticus: "Thou shalt not cast thy seed into the fire for Molech," right? So, this is from chat. It says the ancient Macedonians, especially during the time of Philip, listen to this, especially during the time of Philip II and Alexander the Great, often decorated their armor and crest with animal motifs, including goats, right? Bulls, lions, and rams. But goats were especially symbolic to the Macedonian royal line. And again, I brought out that point. I'm going to actually bring it out. I believe the G&T goes into it, words a little better, but I'm going to just bring this out. Addition to Esther 16 and 13, having by... Actually, I'll start at 12. It says, but he, not bearing his dignity, went about to deprive us of our kingdom and life, having by manifold, many, right, and cunning deceits. Cunning, subtle, right? The serpent was the most subtle creature in the field, right? By manifold, and remember, this is, I believe, Amen. I'm sorry, but I believe it's talking about Agag. But the Amalekite in the book of Esther, slipping my mind right now. Remember, he was actually loved by everybody. He came up just like during the time of King Solomon. Right? During the time of King Solomon, the Most High stirred up. No. Sorry. During the time of David, David was slain. Joab was slain the Edomites for 6 months. Right? And you had a portion of the Edomites of the royal line, I believe, the kings, right? Royal line. They fled where? They fled to Egypt, and they got help. Not only help, they were favored. This is showing you, however these Edomites are, wicked, all this shit, they can come up and be liked, man. They got that. That cunningness. The Pharaoh or the king of Egypt, the Philistines. This is remember, this is ancient times. David, you didn't have a drop of Ishmael in there, right? Maybe the merchants, whatever. But this was Philistines, Mizraimites, right? This man went up in that land as a stranger with no melanin. Maybe they had some melanin, but they came up in there as strangers, or strange people, strange nation. There's a few of them, right? And they won the favor of the royalty, so much so that they placed him second to the king, I believe. And then he gave his daughter, the king's daughter, to this devil, man. And he was good in Egypt until David died. And then when Solomon came up in the power, he came back, and then the Lord stirred up another Edomite adversary, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was Aram. But pretty much when David died, they were good. They said, okay, let's go back, and they went back because Joab, his captain, was slaying the Edomites, right? And that's how this man works. Manifold and cunning deceit sought of us the destruction, as well of Mordecai, who saved our life and continually procured our good, as also of the blameless Esther, partaker of our kingdom with their whole nation. For by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends, to have translated the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. Okay? And as you see here, it says Haman, right? That was his name. A Macedonian, verse 10, Salakia. For Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. So, again, the Macedonians, we don't know how exactly, because a lot of history is missing. But look, this makes sense. The goats were especially symbolic, all right, to the Macedonian royal line, which shows you why was it especially symbolic for them. You see that, and the timeline is that time of Haman, that was just before Alexander. It wasn't too far apart, right? The goat symbol in Macedonian royal identity. The Macedonian royal dynasty, the Argades, traced their mythic origin to a hero named Keranos, who was guided by goats to found their capital, Aegea, literally meaning place of goats. And that's what it means. When you go to the etymology, Aegea, right, it means the place of goats. You can't make this up, man. Because of that legend, the goat became a royal emblem of Macedonia. But spiritually, that's you Edomites. You see a goat, it's proud. It has no, that rock climbing shit the Edomites do. There's Edomites that rock climb with no fucking gear. They don't have a harness. All right. They don't have fucking gloves. They just have chalk, You see goats climbing up steep mountains, not hills, mountains, you know, and they can maneuver that shit. That's the same spirit as an Edomite. There's a French Edomite I'm thinking of. This dude scales, he climbs skyscrapers with no fucking harness, man. Whenever I see a video, I'm scrolling on TikTok or on YouTube, my palms start to sweat. I start to get goosebumps. It's because it's fucking terrifying. This dude is scaling a skyscraper with just his no gloves, man. No gloves, no harness, nothing. Fucking extreme, bro. Just going all the way up. You know, and there's Edomites that do that real rock climbing shit. That's in their spirit. Why do you think that's in their spirit? Because that's their nature, man. That's what they've been doing. Right? It says coins from the Argead period often feature goats or goat heads, symbolizing this origin story. As I said, hold on, what did they say? Argead, right? Hold on. Right? Argead coins goats. Okay, Macedonia. See, as you see, this is all spiritual. Thessalonica, Macedonia. Okay, this is all spiritual. And then, as I said, Baphomet, the modern day goat. You know, the goat god, that androgynous being or demon that they worship and that they push. Right? This is what they push on society. So it says, goats on helmets and armor. There's no continuous record that all Macedonian soldiers wore goats on their helmets, but we have artistic and archaeological evidence suggesting royal or elite units sometimes used goat imagery in decoration. Alexander the Great's era, some depictions on coins, reliefs, and possibly ceremonial armor show goat horns or goat head ornaments on crests or greaves. The goat horns might be stylized metal attachments symbolizing Aegea and the royal line. Ceremonial helmets found at Aegea and Pella show elaborate animal motifs, sometimes interpreted as goats or ram horns. Right? So it's not that every Macedonian soldier wore goat horns, but the symbol appeared on elite or royal gear, emphasizing divine or heroic connection. So again, if you understand spiritually, you know this is spiritual. Why at this particular time, the Macedonians, not all Greeks, but the Macedonians, which were Edomites coming up, you know, after they usurped the original Japhetic peoples, the Greeks, the real Greeks, why they push this emblem from a place they call Aegea, which is literally meaning place of goats. Their conception, or what is it? Conception. I was going to say inception. Their conception, you know, their origin story in Greece. You know. Anyway, I hope that was edifying. Kal halal Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Waharakakurash, Shalom.